Hi guys, my name is Sean. I'm a houseplant enthusiast from Jakarta, Indonesia. In today's video, we're going to be talking about illegal poaching of endemic plants out of Indonesia, and I'm accompanied by Bu Karen, which we're going to interview in a little bit. But really quickly, in the previous episode, I actually uploaded a completely Bahasa Indonesia, which is the Indonesian language episode, to call out to local poachers and farmers and things like that, so that we can fix the broken system that we have in our supply of these endemic plants, which is actually surprisingly very, very illegal and also morally wrong. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the demand side, which is where you guys come in, because you all have a role to play in this issue. So I'm going to start interviewing Bu Karen now, but then I will insert my own thoughts at the later half of the video. So you just heard the first part where Bu Karen discussed the issues with the supply side, with the poaching, and actually a lot of our plant identity has been lost because the plant was removed from our environment, brought to different countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and they were registered there. And the local plants here were sometimes even burnt or destroyed for that purpose. It's a pretty wicked industry. So the next portion of this video, we're going to be talking in English. And this is going to hopefully affect you. You're the consumers of these really, really interesting endemic plants out of Indonesia. So I just want to be raising awareness and have you guys question, where is this coming from? And is it worth it to have plants that were, pretty rare, but then they're taken from their environment illegally to where you live? So the way that we see this is that there are two solutions. One is we have to fix the supply side and then the demand side. So can you share with us a little bit what happens when, or some stories of people poaching and how it destroys our environment and our economy?
All right. So at this moment, because of the pandemic, not the pandemic, but the pandemic, the demand of rare plants is rising. And therefore, people are getting more aware that those are the plants, that the rare plants are the plants in the forest and the plants in the jungle of the tropical plants. In Indonesia is a large country. We have 32 different types of agroclimates, and we have different types of plants, a lot of native plants that hasn't been explored yet. So by this pandemic, people went to the forest or to the jungle, and they took those plants. Because of the IT, this is because of the social media. People are become more aware how to sell their products. They just take a picture and they put it in the Instagram or Facebook, and then you just get a buyer. And it's so easy to get a PayPal or whatever, and they just can't get the money. And the poverty in most of the area is also really, some of the area are high. So this is the quickest way to get money, quick money. But again, is it worth it to buy a rare plant from the forest that you destroy the forest? Because people are not just taking the plants like that. Some people got more greedy, especially people from abroad. I'm so sorry I have to mention this. They came with a chemical and they destroyed the habitat so that they can sell that plant for a better price in their country. Is this fair? We are now living in this climate change. There is so many things that we have to work that we can live longer in this earth. But again, is it worth it? As a collector, as a plant hunter, that you get that plants and you pay maybe a lot of money for that to the plant hunters. But do you know that they destroy the plants? I have to tell you, like the Puche palandras, the many other plants, the Puche palandras is already not extinct anymore. They destroy the habitat because the demand is rising. And this is that we have to stop. And if you want the plants, teach them to do the cultivation instead of just taking it out from the earth of the jungle.
Yeah, and you can also see from the photos if the plant is actually cultured in a nursery or if it's taken from a forest.
That's right.
You can tell.
That's right.
Yeah, and also getting reputable sellers.
That's right.
Really helps as well.
Yes. So that's, please, like now you are always, in the Western countries, we are already talking about traceability when you are going to buy your food. So why don't you start doing also traceability when you buy your plants? Please buy plants that is responsible to the earth.
And also, I have heard of cases, let me know if this is true or false, where, maybe major nurseries or collectors from overseas, maybe Florida or Thailand, I'm not going to name specific regions, where they come in here, they manage to find some interesting, let's say, aroids or orchids. They would bring it back, and then they would, they wouldn't tell anyone about it. They may even hide the location of where they found the plant. They will grow it out in the mass scale over there, and then they will actually be the ones profiting from it. And then us here locally, we, of course, we mentioned earlier that extreme poverty is real here. There is places where people have barely enough food to eat, That is stealing from these people.
Yes.
The plant, this diversity actually belongs to us Indonesians.
Yes.
So just want to be aware that this has to stop,
Yes.
And I believe Bu Karen here, she's been calling the government, she's been working with the government often to advocate for the rights, to export and to poach plants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
Yes, I'm working with the government, but and also with the chambers of commerce. So, this is a very serious matter, and that I try also to shaken the government to understand that this is not only about the export, but don't export the poaching plants, don't export the native plants that hasn't been cultured, and we have a lot of regulation. We have the regulation is already there. So if you bought the plants, and one day, if they know that you buy that plant and they poach from the jungle or from the forest, you already broke the regulation, and anytime it can be processed. Yeah. So I'm not going to scare you, but please, when you already start the traceability with your food, please do the traceability with your plants too.
Yeah.
If you love this earth, please also show your love to this earth by buying plants that have the traceability.
Yeah. So, we really want to protect the environment. We also want to protect, the diversity, and we want to be fair. That's the key point here. We want to be fair with where we source our plants.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And also, the people who live close to the area, that maybe they don't know that those plants are worth it, and people just bought them and buy them for $100 or $1,000, but they lost all their habitat because they destroyed the habitat. That's not fair for them.
Yeah.
Who are you taking all the plants like that, and then you just give $1,000 and only one person got that $1,000? The whole village.
Yeah.
Those are the plants belongs to the whole village, to those area. So elevate with wise.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I think you could help also to elevate the poverty by doing the right things.
Yeah.
There are regulation, there are channels, but please follow that.
Yeah. Imagine, in an ideal world, I may be a bit idealistic here, in an ideal world where, maybe foreigners are welcome to come in here and we can all build this community together, we can share, and just to see all these people who live in extreme poverty in very rural parts of Indonesia, just see them thrive and have happier families and livelihood, that would be such a nice thing to have. And then at the same time, we can enjoy our passion for plants, we can enjoy the diversity and share when it's ready. So we have to be patient and understanding with each other meanwhile.
Yeah, and instead give them more values. Values how to grow them, the values how to hybrid them.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you have to give them
Yes.
instead of taking and poaching.
Yeah. That's interesting. All right. So I guess we've covered everything. Do you have anything to add?
I think that's enough, I think.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Bu Karen, for sharing this knowledge. And I hope that you guys have learned something today. I've learned so much today. Thank you so much, Bu Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so you've just watched Bu Karen's point of view on this subject, and I do want to insert some of my own thoughts, and pardon me because I do have a lot to say, so I've written everything down. I'm just going to read some of my points on my phone, because if I don't, I'm just going to get lost. So if you're not new to my channel, you know that sometimes when I discuss serious topics, I do have to go over my phone. Just a quick disclaimer, not all the plants that you buy from Indonesia are poached. A lot of them has been commercially grown. So I don't want this to poo-poo everyone into to stop buying plants out of Indonesia, because that is not true. In fact, a lot of the plants that we grow here, like your aroids, your anthuriums, philodendrons, they do originate from South America. And we do have some really interesting hybrids of those coming to the market soon. So be on the lookout for those. There are also a lot of credible and socially responsible people in our country. So when we discuss, endemic plant poaching, I know it's a very negative topic. Just know that there are equally as many people who are doing their best. It's not that obvious for everybody, but sometimes we can actually tell when the plants have been poached. When you've bought a cutting or plant that is established and you look at some of the leaves, if the plant has been grown in a forest, you can see that the plant is not in perfect shape. It would have, a lot of these mud stains that wouldn't come off, or some of these, pests, or basically bite marks and things like this. Usually plants from the forest do not look as pristine as the ones that we've seen in our nurseries. And also the credibility of the seller also come in play. So just make sure that you're buying your plants from a reputable source. Now, as I am filming this, I'm talking to a few people and I'm starting to gather bits and pieces of information. The plant industry, and this is worldwide, this is not just a phenomenon in Indonesia, is largely very, very, mafia-like. There's actually a lot of money that goes into it. I'm really surprised by it. And there are a lot of stakeholders, and there are a lot of, I wouldn't want to say people playing dirty. This is just business, because every industry would operate the same way. But here in the houseplant market, there's the issue of poaching, of course, where people take money and then they would get financial gains. And there's also the issue of hoarding, where some people would hoard a specific species of plant, jack up the prices, and then try to sell them. There's definitely a lot of price manipulation going on. And this probably don't happen as often as you think, but it does happen. And then there's the new issue of TC, tissue culture. And that is actually a space race in the plant community, where people want to get ahead, they want to invest, they want to get the right formula, because every plant species actually have a different formula for tissue culture. And that is going to become, the dominant market in the future. And that's a subject that we're going to talk about in the future, not today. But it is going to be largely driven by the people who have, initially invested in it, of course. Now, I want to put it out there that my view on poaching is not radical. I'm not super crazy against it. It's not black and white. This issue is actually almost like a rainbow. There's many layers to it. There's many sides to it. There's many opinions on it. And I'm not going to say, who's right or wrong. But all I'm trying to do in this video is to give you guys a point of view so you can make informed decisions about your purchases, or if you want to act on it, if you want to help, our environment, or the activists who are actively trying to make a difference. Now, this may not be obvious to you, but every single houseplant that we ever owned was poached from the nature at some point. So I'm not going to poo-poo poaching. There's definitely a lot of pros and cons of it. And I'm going to quickly talk about the benefits of poaching, because there are some benefits. First of all, this allows us to discover new species and probably find some useful medicinal remedies out of them. We can enjoy their beauty, and when we collect them, we can increase our gene pool. Our gene pool means that within the same genus of plant, we'll have many species that we can actually hybridize to create new species. And that is a topic that I've discussed with the anthuriums back in February. But yeah, with every genus of plants like orchids, I don't know, there's thousands of them. And there's the more you have, the more you can hybridize, and the more wonderful things we can expect out of this gene pool. Now, another benefit of poaching is conservation, because a lot of the natural habitats of these plants are being decimated at an alarming rate. We're losing so much ecosystems, and if we don't take the plants now, they may be gone forever. And this is where people talk about ex situ conservation, where people can conserve the species outside of their natural environment, whether it's in a botanical garden or whether it's in our homes, which makes this plant collecting actually very, very noble and interesting at the same time. And of course, plant poaching sometimes generate hype. It generates interest in the plant community, where people are just suddenly more interested because something new has happened, some new species have been discovered. Although this is probably a bad side, but I would consider it a benefit when people are actively becoming more involved in plants, talking about it, and may possibly try to conserve it. Now, what is fundamentally morally wrong? What are the negative sides of poaching, right? So all plants, every single species, actually are there for a reason. They have a symbiotic relationship with other plants, animals, and probably bacteria and fungi that are living in that ecosystem. And we are affecting it when we take cuttings, when we take the plant. We're actually damaging not just the plant itself, but everything that relies on that plant. These plants have actually evolved over, millions of years to be where they are now. And, who are we to just come in and just because we want to earn some money, just because we find them beautiful, that we want to, destroy their ecosystem. And plant poaching, it fuels greed. It makes people super greedy. And we've heard some stories where, some poachers would come in, some botanists would come in, or some horticulturalists, whether they're overseas or whether they're local from Indonesia, would find a specific species, and then they would not disclose the name of they would not disclose the location of where the species was found. And then it would just remain lost. Or if they were found, people would rush in and just poach everything, and it would just be gone. In some cases, there are also people who intentionally burn with chemicals all the endemic species here after they've taken a few plants, just so that there's no more competition, just so that they own the only plants available in that species, and the value can go up in that case. This is such a terrible practice, but I'm hearing this left and right. And another negative from poaching is that it steals basically from the livelihood of the natives. And you may disagree with me, but actually in a lot of the regions, I feel like the local villages, the local tribes, even the local city people should be the first ones to benefit from the ecosystem around them. But when you're taking these plants away from these people and you're registering it away from their ecosystems, you're taking away from their livelihood, their chance to build a better life around them, or just to study their own nature. And finally, a lot of the plants that were taken from the natural habitat has adapted to live there, and they are not meant to be cut up, sent on planes, off to the rest of the world, and to adapt to new environments. In a lot of cases, they actually don't make it. So that is the sad truth about poaching and also purchasing plants illegally from the forest. A lot of them don't make it, simply. Now let's talk a little bit about who these poachers of hunters are. And again, I'm a beginner at this. I'm still trying to learn more, but I wanted to put this information out here now because there's actually a lot of interest in Indonesian endemic plants for now. So I'm going to share what I know, and I may update you guys in the future, or feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. So about the poachers and hunters here, this is what I know so far. Some have botanical knowledge, but actually most of them do not. And they rely on botanists or horticulturists. They rely on guests because they do go to the forest with people, or they would go to the forest and take pictures of things, and then people will tell them whether it is significant or not, because they are actually not really botanically educated that way. Of course, there are some that are botanists, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, the people that are coming into the forest, they are just what we call hunters, basically. And these hunters or poachers would actually go into forest with people. I do have one very, very good example. And basically, this person, I would just call her A. I'm not going to reveal any names here because she specifically said do not mention her name. She went out to the forest to pick out, identify the species of plant. And upon returning, she did ask the poacher to send her 50 of those specimens. That's also a number, not actual number. So 50 of that specimens so that she could, one, identify it, register it, and also to cultivate it, because this is actually a competitive market as well. So, when you have commercially grown a plant to a larger scale, you can then distribute it to other farmers and later on to the whole world. That is just how the supply chain works. So upon getting the 50 plant, of course everybody's happy, right? But the case is not closed. A few months later, the hunter approached this person and said, "Hey, we've taken 200 more from the forest. Do you want it or not?" Well, she can either take it, buy it from the person, or she can just say no, and then this poacher would then offer it to other people, or they would just set up an Etsy account and just sell it internationally, which is actually sometimes what happens. And sometimes these poachers also do have connections, so they work with somebody from, let's say, Japan, from Taiwan. I'm listing all these countries that are actually guilty in the past of poaching. Thailand, maybe even the US and Europe and things like that. They may have connections there, so they are actually taking the plants on their behalf and sending it to them. And a lot of these poachers or hunters are actually very, very, very poor. They live in below poverty level. And a lot of you guys are sitting in your comfortable couch on your fancy tables now judging the actions of these people. But until you understand what extreme poverty looks like here, you will never be able to solve this problem or come into this conversation in a meaningful way. Extreme poverty means you really don't know, where your next meal is coming from. Your bathroom is actually a hole on the floor. You're living in very, very crowded, very, very unsanitary living situations. And these are the people who actually are also not that educated, and they actually feel pride and joy in what they do. They feel that there's absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, if you look at some of the listings of plant sellers here, who are obviously plant poachers, because they all have Facebook accounts, they would actually advertise that they are, taken from the forest. In fact, some of them may even be worth more money in that case. So this is the broken part of the supply side from where we are, and we don't really have a solution yet, but I just want you to know that that is a thing that is happening. And some of these poachers will, sell the plant for like, 100 or 1,000 US dollars, and they think, oh my God, this is great, I'm gonna buy a motorbike. This is, but then this is a one-time short-term gain, because this plant that was sent illegally overseas will become mother plants, and they will be cultivated over there and not here. And then, it will just lose its value here. The people here in the area will never be able to enjoy the harvest of this plant to properly commercially grow it. Now, the person actually, he or she did not want to go on record and didn't want to be interviewed, because they were also guilty of doing a little bit of poaching in the past. And of course, there's a different definition of poaching. Again, my view is not that extreme. If you take from the forest, I would say even illegally, but you have the right botanical knowledge, you have the right horticultural background, and you can confidently propagate this plant and distribute it sustainably to the rest of the country, the rest of the world. In my book, that is actually okay. But if you're going to take from the forest and you're going to post it online and you're going to send it halfway around the world at a marked up price, I disagree with that. Everything has to go through proper registration process and supply chain, as what Bu Karen has mentioned earlier. Okay, back to this person. For me, it didn't matter what your past is, because, for example, if you're a vegan, you have eaten meat at some point in the past. It would be meaningful for us to talk about the meat that you've eaten. So, moving forward, I would love more people to come forward, whether you are guilty of poaching or not. Come forward and share your story with me, to share your experience, because who is better suited to talk about this issue and to know the core of the problem than you? So yeah, feel free to reach out to me if this is something that you would love to discuss, because again, protecting our nature, protecting our environment and the endemic species to ensure the livelihood of all Indonesian people is important. Now, I've been rambling on too much, but really quickly, we're going to talk about potential solutions, and I think Bu Karen has mentioned some of them. And one of them is that we probably need more professional and passionate botanists here. We need people to study the study plants, go to our forests, go to our, I don't know, we have many ecosystems here, not just forests, sorry. Even lakes, they're aquatic plants and all that. So, go search out these plants, describe them furiously and aggressively, give everybody names, because so far a lot of our plants, like, we talk about Labicia, we talk about certain Schismatogladis, Homaluminas, they don't really have a species, they just are just SP behind their name. Or maybe they are, but they're just not as widely known. But there's a lot of work cut out here for botanists, and one of the issues I'm guessing is that the salary may be ridiculously low here, because this country actually has a very low minimum wage. So it is actually far more attractive for a botanist to go out there, find species, and then poach it and to make a lot more money than what they earn. So this is something that we have to fix. We definitely need to find passionate people to go out there and describe our species and to register them. And then the next thing they need to do is to work together with the hunters and poachers, or possibly even turn them into horticulturalists if we educate people. But basically, they need to bridge the channel so that the plants can be grown by horticulturalists. And this is actually another group of people who can sustainably grow these species so that they can be readily available for A, conservation, or B, for trade. Now, of course, this is easier said than done, because I've lived here for I would say 8 years now, and I've seen that actually Indonesian people do not trust each other. Everybody kind of want to have their own gains or their own benefits, and this makes partnership and collaborations actually a little bit difficult. And there may actually be some government bodies and some activists that are actually working on it now. Again, I am still new to this. I'm not well connected yet. Feel free to reach out if you know anybody who's working on this issue, who wants to have a platform to talk about their initiatives. But I'm going to end this video here. Again, there's no definite solution to this. This is a work in progress, and we do have to work together. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank Bu Karen for the earlier clips. For watching this, and hopefully spreading this responsible social message along, so we can be better humans. Okay, thank you.